Thank you, Karen. Now, please, if I can ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Fatma Rashid. I'm here on behalf of the Youth of European Nationalities, which is the umbrella organization of autochthonous minorities in Europe. And well, the topic of this session here is Europe and Youth, our future, and I wanted to make some comments from the youth side. And what I have been missing in all the discussions that have been going on here today were the recognition of non-formal education. Because I can make some examples from my own perspective. I actually started to work voluntarily already at the age of 13, and I worked at Senior Citizens Hall, where I also spent my free time actually with older people by just joining them and being a partner for them in that case. And after that, I started to work at public centers where young women came and we helped them, especially those people with migrant background. Having a migrant background by myself, I knew how hard it is, especially for younger women or for younger girls, to deal with the gaps they do have within the society, because I personally also live in Germany, so I know what it means. And after that, I founded my own organization working with young people having a Turkish background from Greece, because I'm also representing that minority, but living in Germany and Great Britain and the Netherlands. And we did or organized a lot of programs where we again try to work on the community level with these young people and help them how they can deal with these collapses in the society and within the cultures they originally come from and which they learn in the communities they live in. So since then, I'm working for the Youth of European Nationalities with all the minorities in Europe. But what I want to point out is, on the one hand, we have the voluntary basis, and on the other hand, of course, I need to think about my own future, because I can definitely not earn any money by being voluntarily active on the community or on the European level. So I personally am studying law in Heidelberg, and I want to make some examples how I noticed that all the work I have been doing in the past almost 10 years have not been recognized at all. What is happening is that the law education in Germany requires the students to take at least 3 months internship, and there are some particular examples where people can get a waiver in order to not fulfill these internships. Let's say they were working in a university body or not, or yes, what happens is that voluntarily service is not recognized at all. So the internships do not require people to get the practical side from a lawyer side. It's more about getting the soft skills, because it doesn't matter whether people attend these internships 5 times a week or whether they only attended once a month. So it's only about having these, having the card that you have fulfilled these internships. And whenever I come up and ask the people, is it possible to get these waivers, because I am working and I do believe that I have these soft skills which I definitely would not have been able to learn at school or in education class, and all I get is only a negative answer. And whenever I apply for a job, people ask me, why do you invest so much of your free time in voluntarily working, and no one really recognizes the work I'm doing. So my question to you, to the panelists, is what can the EU do, or what can the EU member states do, or what are you planning on doing in order to recognize these soft skills people are earning through voluntarily work on the one side, and on the other side, what they are actually giving back to their communities? Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds what you're doing is very interesting, and well done to you on that. And it is a really interesting question. Thank you very much. Let me go to the back row to the young lady, please. Yeah.
Okay, does it work? It's my first time. So, okay, hello. I'm an Erasmus student, as you will be. I came from Poland. My name is Natalia. And I would like to refer here to Mr. Marie's presentation, but as well to some various voices here, because I was a little bit terrified when I was watching your presentation, because I had the impression that the main focus of this research was what is the lack of young people, what are our disabilities in terms of work market, and therefore how to adapt us, young people, to these requirements. And yes, okay, we will take this additional language courses, we will take this and other degrees, exchange, internship, volunteering. We are desperate, we will agree on everything. But I'm just wondering I'm just wondering that we are not only the future workers. I mean, we are future mothers, fathers. I'm just a little bit concerned if we will adapt to this vision. I mean, what kind of society we will be in 50 years. I'm just wondering if we will be able to reach this beautiful age of 83. I mean, everybody here is referring to the personal experience. I mean, I will do the same. I know like 4 foreign languages. I was at like 3 exchanges. I made like, of course, unpaid like 4 or 5 internships. Does it make me feel better on the work market right now? Not at all. You know why? Because you mentioned actually the Polish like improvement in education. What makes me worried is like let's say the latest speech of Prime Minister in Poland, when he said that it's better nowadays to be a plumber than political scientist. I have a degree in European studies. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you touched on something which was already raised a bit on the panel, and you come back to it, that internships can offer real experience, but a lot of young people, because there's no longer-term perspective and no carry-over recognition, I don't think there's an English word for this, but they get interned out. They get worn out with internships and the absence of any more permanent perspective. So it's a point perhaps we might return to on the panel. Are there any other of our participants who are visitors to our group today who would like to speak? Yes, please. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Oui.
Yes, it's fine. We can hear you. I'm studying European Studies in the ULB, and I have a few questions.
Alors, je m'entends maintenant? D'accord. Je vais redire. Donc...
Okay, I'll start again. I'm doing a Masters in European Studies in the ULB, and I have 2 questions for the speakers. Well, first of all, can I thank you all for your very interesting presentations? But I'd like to come back to something Peter Maciasek raised in his presentation on the fact that young people don't turn out to vote in the European elections. And whether Europe is still something that can motivate young people. I'm wondering whether Europe has a strategy to become more important in young people's lives. How does Europe want to arouse interest amongst young people regarding all the issues, migration, unemployment, etc.? And how does Europe intend to get them to understand the challenges and that Europe's actually already part of their lives? It's part of their daily lives, whether in their jobs or in their private lives, for example, the right to free movement, etc. And my second question is about the paradox that Marta Gomez raised between, on the one hand, the idealization of youth, and on the other hand, the almost total lack of any prospects for young people. So where is it that things are going wrong here? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Anyone else would like to intervene? Please, yes, on the back row.
Thank you. And I would like to thank everyone for the presentation, and especially to Peter. I want to congratulate him on his second term as a president of the European Youth Forum. And I would like to thank him for raising the question for Bulgarian and Romanian young people who have a limited opportunity to exercise their right for mobility inside the EU. And because these transitional measures should end by the end of next year. So in the public, there is debate about some countries trying to find a way to impose new measures or to prolong the current restrictions. So is the EU Youth Forum planning to lobby for these two countries, or are the EU institutions as a whole planning to take some measures on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Let me come then, if I can, to briefly to the last two colleagues who wish to intervene, and then I want to return to our panel because we need to wrap up by 1 o'clock. Alistair Hutton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. After I left the Parliament, I spent some time giving employment advice to people who had been put out of work, and I tried to help them get back into it, fortunately with some success. So 2 or 3 small observations from that experience. One was that what we taught then, and what I have seen no evidence of changing, is that people nowadays have to expect what we call then, still call portfolio careers. So what you start out in is not what you finish up in, but you will do several different types of jobs. Now that implies that you will have to keep retraining yourself for doing something new every few years. One of the other groups that I had some interest in helping were people leaving the armed forces. And the greatest interest from that group was how to persuade them that they had transferable skills, using their imaginations to think, what have I got? What else can I use it for? And that's terribly valuable. I mean, what the young lady said about the skills that she's been building up, she's got those skills. The people she's spoken to may not want them now, but she will be able to deploy those. Probably using her imagination, I'm sure she will find a way in which those skills can be channeled. And the last point, Chairman, is persistence. Sometimes it may have taken a year for somebody I was helping to get back into work, but the only way they did it was because they never gave up. They constantly went at, their job was looking for a job. And it was the persistence that paid off in the end. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alistair. And to close, Marijke van Hemmeldonk.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few comments for Mr. Meres. I think it's essential for us to think about reforming vocational training and technical training. After all, technical and vocational training is something that's relatively recent to education systems. The traditional education system is still based on the values of the Renaissance, and it hasn't really changed very much. Whereas technical and vocational training, well, first of all, that's very expensive. I was also an advisor to ministers in national education, and my role was to make proposals how to get more young girls going into technical and vocational training. Well, in the past, there were prospects for them, job prospects. And when I came up with my proposals, the minister was shocked. Like all education ministers, he was a qualified lawyer or political scientist. Now, he was familiar with university education. If you want to train a doctor, you have 50 people in a lecture hall and one professor, and that professor does that for 20 years, and they churn out doctors. If you want to train a plumber, you need one plumbing trainer for 4 or 5 students, and you need to modernize the infrastructure in the technical school every 5 years. My minister was just so shocked about how expensive it was going to be to provide effective technical and industrial training. I think we must talk about vocational technical training together with employers and industry representatives. They need to set up some kind of professional technical Erasmus. And they should be involved, make places available, but not necessarily have any legal implications. So there's got to be the necessary flexibility to provide for traineeships in industry. And recently I read a study which had been drafted by lawyers who were defending young criminals. These young criminals were involved in drugs, amongst other things. And we realized that those young people who'd hardly been to school were actually able to engage in international trade. They were able to launder money, etc. So maybe they didn't do well at school, in a traditional schooling, but then they themselves, in their own systems, now as criminals or in leisure, they're highly organized. So obviously there is talent or potential talent in these people. Well, obviously they've gone off track, but it shows that there's something wrong in our education systems and also in vocational and technical training. Thank you.